Okay, this is an important question. Great topic. I'm going to break down a few different responses. Okay, the first thing to remember is that not all people appear to be doing the 5D thing. And that's because we lock in, and I'm saying this like full honesty, I've done this too. We lock into seeing 5D as this very spiritual thing and overtly spiritual. People who talk about angels and spirit guides and the metaphysical stuff, we see them as 5D and everyone else not 5D. And that's just not true. And I can tell you in my marriage, you've heard me say, my husband's a muggle. He doesn't do the spirituality thing. He has his views, but like he doesn't do this stuff. His soul growth comes in terms of like personal development. And I've seen it in terms of like, he left religion. He's unpacked a lot of his childhood wounds. He's done a lot of soul growth. He's expanding and becoming a better person. And just because it doesn't overtly look spiritual doesn't mean he's not doing the work in his own way. So that's just something to remember about the people in our lives in general. We don't really know that what they're doing isn't spiritual. All soul growth is spiritual. All change, all deciding to like look at things in a different way or soften or expand or rise up. Like soul growth is infinite. So if we look at it in terms of spirituality, we're missing the boat. Secondly, as a general rule, at this point in the game, listen, we've been in the sorting hat for years, okay? So I want you to think back to people in your life who maybe haven't made the cut, whether they were close friends, coworkers, jobs you had, people you had to draw hard boundaries with and cut out of your life, or people that you've just like, you don't vibe anymore, you've drifted away. We've been in the sorting hat for years. So by this point, the people we love who are in our lives and we want to have them in our lives, we're going. We're on the same bus. We're on the same train. We're on the same timeline. Okay, now there are people in our lives right now who maybe we don't get along with. We don't want them to be in our lives. There's a lot of friction that we need to deal with. It's not just like, I don't vibe with that person. It's like, no, this person's in my life and I am struggling with a capital S. Like, I can't work things out with them. Let's look at that. Those kinds of people in our lives serve beautiful soul growth purposes as well because they force us to deal with some shit, to look at ways we're behaving, the ways they're behaving. Like their triggers are very purposeful. And the friction in our relationship means there's some work there to do. And it doesn't always mean that relationship is going to work out, unfortunately. I'm saying this for spouses as well as friends and like, people we need to separate from. But it's the friction that shows us where there's some growth and healing and expansion that needs to happen. This is the whole thing with family in general, siblings, in-laws, people that we just have continued year over year friction with. These patterns likely are very deep in our soul, and we've chosen to incarnate together and enact these dramas, these drawn out conflicts, these long-term patterns, because it's soul growth, it's karma, it's things we decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to go down and I'm going to be this pain in the ass for you so that you can work out ABC, XYZ. We do that with people who are our family. So it could be any number of these things in our marriages and in our close personal relationships. So that's why I don't like to make, especially with spouses, with children, things like that, that's different. But like spouses are chosen family, the most intimate person in our life. So they have both the opportunity of being like, hey, they can be on a different, their spirituality, their growth can look very different from ours. It doesn't mean we're not going the same way. But also, we shouldn't be ignoring the real underlying friction that needs our attention. Either way, like that friction, if you handle it well, if you really get into it, is soul growth. Even if that means that ultimately the relationship is not sustainable and needs to end. The process of doing that, figuring that out, taking those steps, huge soul growth. Because not all soul growth feels good. Sometimes it's real damn painful at first. And another side note, there's going to be a lot of people right now in this time frame who are going to become explosive. And that is not always a bad thing. Because what we're going to see right now is the need for people to rise up. So it's like a healthy, protective type of ferocity that some people are going to step up into. So we're going to start to see soul growth and expansion in like ways we might not initially call it that. Does that make sense? Okay, so bringing this all home, what I would recommend is if you are looking at your relationship with someone, kind of determine where there's any sort of friction and where that would need some work. Having tough conversations, setting boundaries, or maybe letting go of judgments, letting go of my own criticisms of this person so they can flourish in a way that looks good to them and doesn't fit any preconceived notion or judgment that we have. And then at that point, once you've kind of worked all those things out, then it's time to just appreciate them for who they are, see the beauty and see the perfection in their own path, and let that be your guide to, are we growing together? We don't have to be growing at the same rate. We don't have to be growing in the same ways, but like, are we both growth minded? Are we both peaceful? Are we both supportive? Are, all these like good beneficial things that you want in a marriage. As long as you have that as the overall underlying thing, then like, yeah, you're both going the same place.